Right, so welcome to part 2 of this series of videos that I'm doing on my latest build, which is a chambered bodied E-mando. And really this episode is all about how I've done this, carving the top, this lovely piece of Adirondack spruce, carving the top, which will eventually be glued on to the rest of the body that I showed you in the previous video. So yeah, let me show you how I got this far. So here's that Adirondack spruce top, and it's held in place onto the rim at the moment by a number of silver steel pins, and that's just to allow me to take the top off, put it back on, take it off, put it back on, etc., and it go back on in the same place every single time. So what I'm going to do now is plane a number of sort of facets onto the top here. So from this line here, I'm going to plane down at 3 degrees, and that's going to enable me to put my template on to route the slots for the pickups. Then once that's done, I'm going to take this area back at 5 degrees, and that's where the fretboard will sit eventually and give me the pitch of the neck. This area here, where the bridge is going to go, I'm going to leave that as is for the time being, but then I'm going to slope back here, and that's going to be tapered down to about 5 millimeters from that back surface. So that's the first task really of shaping this. So I've just finished shaping the last of those facets that I was talking about. So we've got this area here is where the tail piece will sit. Bridge here, we're sloping back here where the pickups are, and then this piece here goes back at 5 degrees, which will support the fretboard. So what I've got to do now is blend all of these different facets into one another and come down around the edge here, so we get this nice typical carved top, you know, a bit like I guess a Les Paul or something like that. Yeah, so that's the next step. So I've got this half more or less how I want it to be, and what you can see is I've drawn a grid on that surface, and what that allows me to use my sort of profile follower and kind of map out the other side, so I can get the two halves as sort of symmetrical as possible. And you know, you can go diagonally across the grid and check it in that direction as well quite readily. So yeah, that grid really helps enormously. So I've done about as much as I want to as far as the shaping of the top is at this stage. If I show you the other side, you can see that there's quite an overhang. So it's not until that's been glued onto the sides and it all trimmed up that I'll kind of give this edge a final sort of fettling, as it were. So what I'm going to do now is drill the holes here for the controls, and I'm going to drill through perpendicular to the back surface, so completely vertical, and then that top surface will be counterbored so that the pots and the switches sit square. Yes, all those holes have been drilled now, and you can see how I've counterbored where the knobs and the switches are going to go. I mean, if you don't do that, what happens is either you're going to have a gap underneath, or you're going to put the knobs in at a slight angle. And I think this is a much neater solution, and you can see that the washer for the switch and the hexagonal nut also sits nicely below the surface there, so that whole control area is going to look really quite neat once it's done. So as you can see then, the top now is ready to be glued onto the rest of the body. We've got the pickup recesses. This portion here is flat, that's where the fretboard will eventually be glued onto, going back giving a 5-degree pitch to the neck. We've got the recesses here to keep this whole area looking really neat, and all of the shafts of the controls perpendicular to the back. And of course at the back here, that area has also been recessed to allow for the different lengths of the shafts for the switches and the control knobs. And this area within here, all of that will be painted with some conductive paint, and also around here we have some copper foil for the shielding, so all of that would help keep the instrument quiet. I mean, when I say quiet, I mean from electrical hum, not from being played. So yeah, that's pretty much the top done now for the time being. So yeah, thanks very much for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you soon when we'll be putting the body together. So until then, you take care, and thanks again for watching. Cheers.